I'll start by giving you some details about what is possible with Power Apps today on the Xbox. So here I have my Xbox. I'm streaming it from a capture card, and just so that there's no wondering if this is real or not, this is really my Xbox. All of your apps today can be opened on your Xbox already. That's a given. So the first type of app that I'd like to show you is just a basic using the Xbox remote as a kind of like a mouse. So the left stick will move the cursor. The right stick is kind of like a scrolling. And then the A button is like clicking. So if the only thing that your app needs is just like a mouse or a kind of cursor, then you're all done. Your app will work on the Xbox, no issue at all. But you want to do more interesting things and get more out of your remote. So some apps that you make, you might want to move things. So here I have a different app. This one is a Halloween kind of game. It lands on a screen for accessibility settings. And I think this is a good pattern that, just throwing a nugget out there that anytime you build a game, you should start with those accessibility settings. A quick win for anybody trying to use your app. So I got things like text size and language and so on. So I'll go ahead and click save. This is a kind of puzzle game. And I'll ask for some help here. Let's do level 3. And what's different about this game is I'm holding down the menu button, and that brings up, it's kind of like a right click. And I could change between using the gamepad as a cursor or using the gamepad as the buttons themselves. So I'll go ahead and click use game controls, and you can see this time for this game, I'm using the left stick to move my selection. And I could use the D-pad as well. When I hold down the A button, I could change the direction and swap it where it needs to go. Okay, so that's another example of just a basic app using the cursor, using the left and right sticks for movement. Now let's go a little bit more complex here. Here's a ship game. You probably saw some demos of this. I will click here. I've got some settings, but I'll go ahead and click this next button. Move my mouse out of the way. And let me increase the volume just a little bit so you can hear the music. And then let me change a couple settings here. Okay, so there's a little cheat menu here. I'm gonna make myself invulnerable just for the sake of this demo. But I could, one second. I could hold down the, let me refresh this. I could use this just like I would, let me go ahead and refresh this. I could use it just as if I were to, see, I think it zoomed in, and I'm not sure how to zoom back out on the Xbox. So let me exit full screen and change the zoom here. Okay, and let me show you this last game because I want you to get a feel for how games are made inside the Xbox. What you're seeing here is not as complex as the last ship room game, but check out the boxes. These dots that you see on the screen are the playing characters, and the box around it is the area that other things will bump into. It should really be a circle, but I just chose box. Now I could move this character, and let me switch to game controls. So I can move this character with my gamepad, and I could add another character on the screen, and you can see that our boxes are going to bump into each other. If I try to walk into this wall, it will bump. What if I stand next to this other character? Again, this should be circles. We're actually bumping it together as circles. You can see my life bar is changing, but what's really happening here? Well, everything here is working inside a table. The grid in the background is a table. And then if I push this button, I change it and I skin the app to the actual visuals. So I'm actually fighting this character here. And I could switch back between these modes. I wanted to show you this because every game that you make is just a table. So with these demos shown, let me switch over to what we're going to be making today. And Todd, can I get confirmation that sound and everything is coming through?
Yeah.
It's a little late to be asking that, but okay. So let me jump over to what are we going to be making today? I'm going to be showing you how you can get started by making apps that use the gamepad. So your apps can already be opened in Power Apps, but the ones that you might not be making today are the ones that use a gamepad. We're going to be creating the details of the player. We're going to move it. We're going to improve that movement with some neat functions, and then we're going to rotate the player, and that's all going to fit in the next 20 minutes. And I'll try to get your involvement every now and then. So let's hop over to how to get started. I pasted a couple links inside the chat. Today, I'm going to be using John Liu's Gamepad Pcf component. He created this so that the browser, every modern browser can communicate with what's called the Gamepad API. In other words, it's an API that will react to the inputs of a gamepad. So this is already pasted in the chat. You can scroll up to grab it. Once you download this, and John was kind enough to export it as a zip file for me, you'll go to Power Apps Admin Center first. I'm going to jump to an existing environment that I have, and I want to enable Pcf components for this environment. So this is my prod environment. I click Settings at the top, zoom in here. Click Settings at the top of this environment. I expand the product category and click into Features. Inside the features, you can enable things like geospatial services, mixed reality. I think mixed reality is here. Collaboration. I'm going to enable Power Apps Component Framework for Canvas apps. Mine's already on. Once you set that, click Save at the bottom of those settings. And your environment will be set up so that it can import Pcf components. I'm going to jump to my environment now. So I'm in make.powerapps.com, the Power Apps portal. I go to Solutions. I click Import at the top. Then on the right side of the screen, I'm going to browse for the Gamepad component. Let's type in Gamepad. I search for a zip file that I have with the Gamepad component. I click Next at the bottom. Now, I already have this component inside my solution or inside my environment, so I don't really have to do this again. But you would click Import Next and follow the instructions on screen. Okay, I'll go ahead and cancel this. So the components inside that environment, now any app that I make, I can potentially add that component inside the app. So let's go ahead and start our app. I'll click New App, Canvas app.
I have a question about the component that John made. Did John write the API that talks to the gamepad, or did he just wrap it and someone else wrote that gamepad API library?
The interesting thing about the Gamepad API, I don't know why it's called API, but it's just this native capability inside a browser that listens for the inputs. I'm not too technical on the details behind how it works. He wrote the component which listens to those inputs.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and start by giving my app a name. Today, I'm just going to make I'll just call it the Power Apps Community call. Power Apps Community call. I'll click Create. I'm making this an in the tablet form factor. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is show you how to insert that PCF component. Well, when you want to insert things, you click the Insert menu on the left side of the screen. Go to the bottom where it says Get More Components. There are two categories of components today: Canvas apps components and code components. Well, that PCF component, the Gamepad component, is a PCF component. It's going to be fitting under code. Okay, I'll click code at the top, and then I'll select the Gamepad component and import. So now my app is, go ahead and save this. My app now has that Gamepad component in it. For selection, I'll add it to the canvas and show you what it looks like. So here on the left side of the screen, I click Components and bring in that component. Okay, you see it's this blank square right now. Now my computer has an Xbox controller connected to it right now. This one's connected by USB. Really what this Gamepad component does is it listens to the connected USB devices. So if I were to start changing this, you see right away that I get the inputs of this controller. If I move the stick, I can see that the numbers in that first part change. There's another stick that changes numbers. I can push buttons and they return true or false. If they are clicked, they also return 1 or 0, 1 being true, 0 being false. All right. So I have confirmation that that Gamepad is working and it's being pulled into this app. What I want to do next is bring in a nice control just to keep all my things organized. And we're joined by Emma today, who had a hand in making these container controls. I'm going to insert a vertical container, just to keep things nice and tidy. I'm going to cut this PCF component, paste it in here, and we're going to have a lot of controls today. Okay, so I'll bring that on the left side. Next, this is where I want you to be involved. I'm going to create that player. So jumping back to the roadmap here, we're going to create details for a player that we're going to move. Okay, so let's do this in a variable. I'm going to set something that I'm calling set this player to this thing. Okay, so let me start it off, and then I want to get some ideas from you. And Todd, if you could read out some of the ideas. I don't have a view of the chat right now. So when I describe a player, I'm going to start with its name. Okay, my player's name. We'll just use my cat's name, Abby. Okay, how else would you describe a player? Well, it's got a position in the X direction, a position in the Y direction. Okay, Todd, any inputs on how you would describe a player?
I haven't seen any yet, but I was wondering when I first saw the input how I would hack this and build an auto clicker. Oh, are they masked? Is the player masked?
Okay, that's probably like a true or false, right?
Makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Color, rotation.
Okay, for color, I'll do RGB. Yeah, just do a couple quick ones here. 0 to 1, 0, 1, 22, 1, 2, 1. I like that color.
Height or size?
Size, I like to do as a combination of width to 100 and height 100.
Jim Duncan,
I'm going to do it.
Jim Duncan mentions lives.
Lives. Okay.
Yeah.
Health, direction. Oh, they're flowing in now.
Yeah. I'm not going to do them all.
You got.
I'm not going to do them. I'm going to move on.
Okay.
So the important things today is X and Y position. I'm going to add just a couple more things here. Speed 1.00. There's going to be a multiplier for the speed that it's going. And then I'll add rotation. 0. Okay. So no matter what you're doing, I'm going to create this player as a record. Then, as I mentioned earlier, all games are tables, just a bunch of tables. So I'm going to collect that, collect that to a collection that I'm calling the sprites. Sprites are a word to describe the things inside the app. So I'm going to collect that player to this table. I'm not going to use that table for today's demo, but I just want you to see that I'm going to be manipulating the details of this player inside that table if I were to create this actual app. Okay, I'll change the text on this button just to say reset. Reset. Okay. I'll go ahead and insert an icon. Let's insert an icon on the screen. This is going to be my player. Okay, I'll rename this control as I go along, just so that I don't lose track of these. Now, I did create some properties for this player, so let's go ahead and fill it in as much as we can. So for the icon, I created a property called var_player.theavatar. And before I do anything else, let's click this button. If I zoom out, I set this player's avatar to a bug. I gave this player an X property and a Y property. So let's fill that in. The X property is var_player.x. The Y property is var_player.y. Now I have those things set up. I'm going to change those numbers over time. And I'll show you the concept of a game loop. I'm going to insert a timer on the screen. And this timer is going to have a very short interval of about 50 milliseconds. And every game uses this kind of idea. It's a looping timer. At the end of that timer, it's going to do something. Well, I'm going to reset that character's position by a certain amount. Let's go ahead and create that amount as a slider. I'll insert a slider and set its value to about 4 pixels. I will name this slider the distance that my character is going to travel. Now, I haven't gotten to the part where I'm using the gamepad yet. Let's go ahead and do that. How do I listen for this gamepad? This time, I'm going to do these controls outside of the container just so I can make a point about its location. Now, the D-pad on the gamepad has 4 directions, and I could use this website called Gamepad Tester to find out which button, what's the name of that button. Button 12 is up, button 13 is down, button 14 is left, button 15 is right. So in the app, I'm going to show you when I'm clicking those buttons. I'll use a toggle. And I'll go ahead and insert 4 of these. Up, down, a left, and a right one, just to make it a point. And let's go ahead and name these. Toggle up, toggle down, toggle left, and toggle right. Okay, so for this first toggle, when I want to detect that I'm pushing up, I could reference that gamepad component. So I'll type gamepad dot, and this is where I can pull up all the different properties. It has all of these different X axes, Y axes. Button 12 is the one I want for up. Right now it's 0 because I'm not pressing it. And if I press 1, I can see that it changes. Now copy that, go to the down button. Down is 13, left is 14, and right is 15. So when I've got this ready, I can see that when I press the buttons, they react. So how am I going to use that? Well, every time this timer ends, I'm going to check if any of those is on. So toggle up, toggle down, toggle left, toggle right. If any of those is true, I'm going to update my player. And the player can have many properties, but if I only want to change a couple of properties, I'm going to patch it. I'm going to take the existing value of the player, and inside these brackets, I'm only going to modify the X and the Y. So the X property, I'm going to keep it at its same X property. The Y property, I'll reference its existing Y property. If I were to do nothing right now, all this formula is doing is, if I'm pressing one of those buttons, it'll keep that same position. I don't want to keep the same position though. I want to add that slider, right? The value of that distance. So about 4 pixels when it's moving. And if I'm moving left in the X direction, I want to subtract that number, minus 4 pixels. If I'm moving right, I want to add 4 pixels. So if I'm traveling to the left, then I want to subtract. If I'm traveling to the right, I want to multiply by 1, which is adding that number. I'm going to copy that kind of logic to the second one and change it so that if I'm traveling up, I'm subtracting. If I'm traveling down, I'm adding.
Hey, Brian, I'm curious about your choice to use the slider. Do you choose that so that as you develop your game, you can quickly adjust those values and say, yes, this feels right as I'm moving my joystick and playing with it?
Exactly. So I like to tweak it as I go along because I don't really know how well it's going to go.
4 pixels, 8 pixels, right? Who knows what's going to feel? Oh, Craig was showing off in his difficulty in his game, and he would take variables like that at higher levels of difficulty and change them. Do you also do that?
Yeah. So you could adjust them with a level. So you could multiply that speed if you wanted to even more. Yeah.
So those principles are crossing over between how he architected his game app and how you're doing it too. That's nice to see.
Yeah.
Well, it's moving.
So here, yep. Here I'm pushing those buttons, and if pushed 2 at a time, it can do both directions, X and Y. So that's one. Now let's go back to the roadmap. Let's squeeze in whatever we can in the remaining time. So I moved the player. Let's refine it. These are 2 patterns that I like a lot. What if you didn't want the, let me make it a point about it. What if, oh no, they're going off screen. What if you don't want that? Well, here's a nice pattern that you could use. And I'm going to start spacing things out a little bit more. Here I'm adding this amount. So this is the original amount. And this is the displacement, the amount that you're changing. Okay, what if you wanted to keep that within certain bounds? Well, I could wrap it around a minimum level and a maximum level. This is the part where it gets kind of confusing, where I'm going to use the maximum function so that it doesn't get smaller than 0. I'm going to use the minimum function so that it doesn't exceed the width of the screen, which is parent.width. So between the minimum and the maximum, if I wrap those 2 functions around whatever this number is, I didn't do the Y direction yet. So if I try to go to the X here, and let's use a giant number. Okay. If I, let's see. Parent.width. This should be the screen width of the entire screen. So this is the screen 1.width. Okay, sorry. It was relative to the container there. Let me show you one more thing. So that's the X direction. Now, what if you wanted it to wrap? Now I'll do this with the Y direction. You wanted the player to warp to the other side of the screen. Well, you could use this mod function and use the screen one.height to do that. And I'll just make a point of it here. If I push up, it warps to the other side. So those are two nice quick patterns that you could do. We didn't get to rotation today, but that's okay. You have the game component. You can see how you can use it into your own apps and add some motion or selection to your app. And with that, I want to thank you for having me, and I'll hand it over to Emma, who is going to be showing you some collaboration features. So Emma, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, Brian. We really appreciate you coming back and showing this to us. Chuck put a link to a USB Xbox controller in the chat. We're all wondering how many are going to be sold tonight. That was really neat. You're such a good teacher. Thanks for sharing that. I can't wait to do it myself. Now that I see you do it in 20 minutes, I'm stoked. We're going to have a little bug crawling around our screen tonight, too.